Okay, so first we have to find the average daily census. So this is if you were to be scheduling ahead of time to find out how many nurses you need on, dependent on what the daily census is, and we're looking at an average. So I just came up with a random number. Say we have 9,200 patients per year on our unit. So you're going to take the 9,200 and divide it by 365 days in a year. And the answer that we get for that is 25. So that's 25 patients per day on average. So that's the first number. And then to find the second, we're going to determine patient care hours. So I'm going to refer back to that chart that's in our book. And I'm just going to make it easy and say that all the patients are in acuity level 1. So that requires 6 hours of care total per patient. So we would take the 25, which is how many patients we got for the average daily census, and you multiply that by 6, which is 150 patient care hours per day. So now we have 25 patients per day with 150 patient care hours per day. And then third, we have to find the full-time equivalent. So I'm going to go back to the equations that we used before. And we're just going to plug the numbers in. So for the first one, average nursing care hours, that's 6. Because we're going by the 150 divided by 25 patients per day is equal to 6. Also the number that I got off the chart. And you multiply that by the days in the staffing period, which is 14, because it goes over a 2-week period. And then you multiply that by the average patient census. And the average patient census is 25. That's what we got when we did that first step. And then you divide all of that by 80, because hours of the full-time equivalent in 2 weeks is 80 hours. 40 hours per week, 80 hours in 2 weeks. So then the answer we get for that is 26.25, or just round to 26. And then the other equation that we can use is total nursing care hours. So that we're taking the total, which is the 150. The 25 patients per day times the 6 nursing care hours, or I mean the 6 patient care hours, and then you get the 150. And then you multiply that by 365 days in a year, and then you divide it by the total annual hours per one full-time equivalent, which is 2,080. And then we get 26.3, around to 26. So that's a total of 26 full-time equivalent hours that you need. But remember, that's not it's not 26 people, it's 26 full-time equivalents. So that goes back to those 0.4s, 0.6s, 2.1s. You have to look at everyone's schedule and see if they're full-time, part-time, and how much their hours equates to into a full-time equivalent. And then you match up the schedules based on that to make sure that you have the proper amount of nurses to cover the patient census for that day. And then I just have a video. I had a hard time finding videos that about like staffing and scheduling, but I did find this video. It's called A World Without Nurses, and it kind of just talks about how not even just within the US but worldwide, by 2020 we're going to see a huge retirement from a lot of like the baby boomers. So that's really going to be a hit to the medical community because there's going to be thousands of people retiring at that time, and we don't have that many more nurses coming into the field. So it's just going to talk about how it affects patients when you have less nurses working, and essentially, when you have less nurses staffed on the units. So I'm just going to go ahead and play this video. I'm also going to post a link to the video when I do upload the presentation, so that if you want to view it outside of the presentation, you can. Another point I wanted to make too, how it mentioned about education and preventative care in this video. That's another thing that nurses can really only do if we're properly staffed. If we don't have the time to educate and to provide preventative care, we're not serving our patients the way we should be. And that's one thing that you really can only do if you have the time to do it, which means if you're properly staffed. It gives you extra time to be able to complete those tasks. And that's such a huge fundamental portion of nursing. This is my reference list. That's all that I have for this presentation. I'm going to post these videos and also the additional links that I talked about as well. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.